Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's episode of Car Wars, and today we're doing a special edition, old versus new, and I'm driving the brand new Volkswagen Atlas, and Tommy's got some old cruddy VW over there.
No, I've got the 2004 Volkswagen Touareg, and in this video we're going to compare them and see which one is better.
Yeah, it's of course obvious the new Atlas base camp is much better because this is the off-road worthy one, Tommy.
Okay, off-road worthy. Is that front skid plate functional?
No, it's cosmetic.
What about the rock sliders on the side?
Those are also cosmetic, but it does have a really cool base camp logo on the side. And let's face it, the Atlas, well, it's kind of the successor to the VW Touareg. That's right, Touareg. It's Touareg in Europe, sorry. And what it is basically a modern version of a classic vehicle. And I'm always more into the new than into the old cruddy stuff because, well, it's new and it's cool and it's got the latest and greatest features. Let me show you.
Hang on, hold up. It is not at all the successor to the Touareg. The successor to the Touareg is the new Touareg, which we don't get here in the United States. The Atlas is a much more budget-friendly 3-row 7-seater. I mean, they're similar kind of in that they're both Volkswagen SUVs, but the original is on a whole nother plane. But just keep going with your tour.
Well, you know, they took the idea of a family hauling crossover SUV and they Americanized it, right? They built it in Chattanooga and they gave it something that vehicle could only dream about. Let me show you. Come on with me. Come on, Tommy. I'll show you what this has that yours could only dream about. The one thing that every American family needs, and that is, check this out. Voila, a third row, Tommy. That's right. This will seat 7 in a pinch.
Oh good, so they made a big square minivan is what they've done. What Volkswagen has done is taken their very first idea of an SUV, the Touareg, okay, and they have basically turned the SUV into another family hauler. But let's take a look at the original. Now this 2004 Volkswagen was the original VW SUV, and admittedly it is quite ugly. It kind of looks like a Jetta or a Passat of the era that got stuck in an oven and then went it's not an attractive car, and as such people really discounted these as being just a little weird. But under the skin, this was an absolute amazing piece of engineering. It had stuff that just was mind-blowing in 2004. Little details like the fact it had keyless entry in the front, keyless entry in the rear. It's got height adjustable air suspension. Under the hood was a choice of V6, V8, or here in the US, a V10 TDI. It's so much smaller than the Atlas, of course, but the amount of tech and just engineering they've crammed into this for the era was incredible. I mean, this was like a $55,000 car MSRP in 04.
And therein lies the rub, guys, because that Atlas in 2021, which is 17 years later, cost $45,000. So yeah, it was an engineering moonshot, but it was also a bit of a dumpster fire when it came to reliability.
Well, I mean, it was made to compete with like BMW's X5, eventually like the Cayenne, which is based on the Volkswagen. The Atlas is meant to compete with stuff like the Grand Cherokee. But let's hop inside the Atlas and see what that's like, and then we'll jump in the 04.
Look, Tommy, it took Volkswagen a while to figure out what Americans wanted. And what they didn't want was a BMW competitor at a Volkswagen dealership, right? And so now you have a vehicle that is much more in line with the way that Americans use these versus the way that, like, snooty Germans use them.
I mean, granted, it is Big Mac sized, I will give you that. It's very spacious in here, but it doesn't feel very premium. I mean, the quality of materials is a little bit hard and scratchy, as you would say. The layout, very functional, but not a lot of design in here.
You know, this is classic German engineering at its best. Everything you need and nothing you don't. So it's all logical, it's all driver-centric. You know, you've got things like a volume knob and a tuning knob. You've got dual knobs for the temperature control, and you even have such niceties as heated seats. And of course, a digital display right in the center, Tommy.
You do have a mode selector down here.
Yes, I do have several modes. Now let's keep in mind that I do have an off-road mode, but this base camp edition is basically, and yes, it pains me to say this, but an appearance package. I wish that they had actually stuck with the concept that this is based on and built a real off-roader, but you know, that's more of an off-roader. I'm going to give that up to you right away. But you know, for a vehicle that hauls 3 rows of passengers, 18 mpg in the city is not bad, especially when you look at the fine power plant that's under the hood. Under the hood is a V6, 3.6 liters, produces 276 horsepower, 266 pound-foot of torque. It is mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and this vehicle will tow 5,000 pounds, which is a little bit on the light side, but nevertheless, once again, everything you need, nothing you don't.
I mean, it's fine. The other option is a 4-cylinder turbo. Like they're good engines, but they're not really moving the needle. No one looks at this and thinks, wow, I've got to tell my friends about that. Whereas the old Touareg is something really special under the hood. Now, even though this old Volkswagen is something like 11 inches shorter than that new Atlas, you had quite the choice in terms of engine. So the base engine was a VR6. Then you had this, the 4.2 liter V8. This one makes 310 horsepower, 302 pound-feet of torque, which is more than the Atlas. And then if you were really insane, you could get a V10 twin-turbo diesel with over 530 pound-feet of torque. And in Europe, you could even get a W12. I mean, this is like the size of a RAV4, and that is a serious amount of power in a relatively small, albeit ridiculously heavy vehicle.
And no matter which engine you got, they all had one thing, well, actually two things in common. First, they depreciated like a rock, and then they were very expensive to maintain.
Very expensive to maintain, yes. So this one, as you see, it has over $25,000 in service history, which sounds like a lot, but it is
It's halfway to the cost. More than halfway.
It is 17 years old, so that's like, I don't know, math, $1,200-1,300 a year to maintain. It's not crazy. It's not crazy for the amount of tech, and wait till you see the tech on the inside.
It's like a Land Rover, right? You get upside down with these things. We bought this
immediately
for $4,500, and if anything goes wrong with this engine, it's going to cost more than the value of the entire vehicle.
But has anything gone wrong?
Not yet.
Not yet. Over 2 years. Pretty good. Now, the interior of this old Volkswagen has more leather and walnut than I think Buckingham Palace, to be honest.
You know, for a vehicle that was very expensive, these buttons have not held up all that well. Well, it's obviously fake chrome is peeling. There's just a lot of, you know, stuff that you would expect to be better. Especially given that this was a premium vehicle. I know it's from Volkswagen, but it was considered a premium vehicle.
Well, it's got 133,000 miles.
Yeah, I can see a lot of trucks with 133,000 miles which don't have stuff like that.
Okay, granted, some of the buttons are looking a little bit worn and a little bit sad, but let me walk you through some of the tech features in here. Heated seats, front and back. It's got 4 heated seats, heated steering wheel. It's got 4-zone automatic climate control. It has a feature where when you squirt the windshield, it goes to recirc automatically, so you don't have to smell the windshield washer fluid. It has a low-range transfer case, just like you'd find on a Wrangler, a center locking diff, a rear locking diff, 3 different suspension modes. It has height adjustable air suspension. It has different sun visors depending on where the sun is at in the day. It has memory seats for the driver and the passenger side. It's got lumbar support on the passenger side. It's got every feature you could possibly imagine. Even by today's standard, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and that's why it costs $25,000 to maintain it over the cost of the last 17 years.
But the crazy thing is, if you look at the service history, and I've dove into it, like, I'd say 80% of the problems happened up till 95,000 miles. And then past then, it's been very little but routine maintenance. There's a lot of like over-engineering stuff, like the battery lives underneath the seats.
It costs $250. My goodness, plus the cost actually of the battery to replace it.
It's a big job to replace the battery. The alternator is water cooled. It's the four
on the diesel. I think you got to pull the engine to replace the alternator.
It was some insane thing. Maybe the diesel. I don't know about that, but it is a very hard thing to, yes, over time to keep on the road. But if you are willing to keep it on the road, you can deal with cool stuff like up here. We've got little radar sensors for the parking system. You could get an optional auxiliary heater, so you could precondition the car before you got in it in the morning. I mean, just in crazy stuff.
Well, let me show you what the non-crazy Atlas drives like, so let's go for a ride in that. All right, Tom, you gotta love this giant sunroof. You have to admit the Touaregs are starting to look a little bit silly.
Yeah, I mean, it was 17 years ago. But let's see how the merging power is with the big V6 in the Atlas. 8-speed automatic.
I'm gonna give it the beans. There it goes, downshifts. That's the speed limit. It's okay. I mean, it's not gonna blow your socks off or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more than adequate, and it's got a pretty good sound to it. The Atlas is a very different car than the old Volkswagen. I mean, this is built to be the ultimate family hauler and do it in extreme comfort, and I think it does that pretty well. It just doesn't have the crazy towing. This tows 5,000 versus the old one, which was like 7K. and it doesn't have the crazy air suspension and lockers and stuff, but it's good at driving around town with the family.
Yeah, and it's very comfortable, you know, it does everything very well. The ride is firm without being jittery. The acceleration is quick without being painful. You know, the seating position is comfortable and airy and bright. The steering feel is well modulated, so you feel like, you know, you're have a sense for what the road is doing. Overall, it's just, you know, a very German engineered way of driving a car around. The one thing I don't like about it, and I have to admit you're right about this, is that when they had the original concept that I actually saw, it was a real off-roader, right?
The base camp.
Yeah, the base camp. And they've turned it into an appearance package. And I don't know why that is. You know, how come the Touareg actually has all the off-road goodies, and this one is just, you know, basically a sticker, a logo, and some wheels?
Well, because nobody was taking the Touareg off-road.
Yeah, but now they do.
Yeah, well, now that they're $4,000. But I think that Volkswagen looked at it and said, hey, only X percentage, 3% or whatever it is, is actually using these in the dirt. Why are we putting all this engineering tech into giving it ground clearance and lockers if no one's using it?
Yeah, I get that, but that was also way before, like, hashtag van life became a thing and everybody decided that what they wanted out of life was a vehicle that could take them not just to the end of the road, but way beyond the end of the road.
I mean, I think this will do a little bit of off-roading. It still has pretty good ground clearance, and it has a fine all-wheel drive system. It's just not as insane as the old one. I mean, it's just a different kind of mentality. The old one was built to be the best SUV in the world. This one is built to be a good SUV for $45,000 to beat its competition.
Yeah, you're right. It's built to also haul you and your family and your neighbors' kids to school, and that's fine. But why just stop there? Why not go that extra step and actually give it some off-road cred? Because it wouldn't be hard, right? Germans certainly have the technical prowess to design a 1-inch lift and maybe some skid plates, and throw on some bigger tires and some more aggressive wheels on it.
I think it's a lot more expensive than that, because then you have to get it recertified by the EPA. You might have to re-crash test it if it sits higher. I mean, it's a very expensive thing to start modifying the overall dimensions of the vehicle and how it sits. But as a kind of a family cruiser, it's good. The Atlas is a good choice.
Tommy, let me show you the magic of the... Well, it's not very magical, is it?
It does have a very small sunroof. Yes,
it looks like a little portal now.
Yes, but I think the rest of the interior is held up super well in terms of its even its design. I mean, for 2004, infotainment screen, it's I think a 7-inch screen, somewhere in that territory. It looks good. It still works. Navigation still works. It doesn't have Bluetooth or Apple CarPlay, but I don't know. It's 132,000 miles. All the pixels still work.
It's a little squeaky.
Well, yeah.
Give her the beans. Let's see what that V8 does.
All right, sport mode, full throttle, 6,000 RPM.
It's a little bit pokey. I think some of the horses have left the barn over the years.
Well, part of the issue is that these cars are so heavy. I think the curb weight on this is like 5,300 pounds. I mean, it's like full-size truck territory for something that's, by modern standards, a small, compact crossover. It's insane how much just sheet metal and solenoids and computers are.
I want to say there's like 1,800 airbags in here.
Yes, there are a lot of airbags. And they did use a lot of aluminum in it, which was pretty cool.
And it's still heavy.
Yeah, it's very heavy. Now, it does drive very differently than the Atlas. So the Atlas is kind of a little bit... it's a much bigger vehicle, but it feels a little bit more nimble. The steering in this is super heavy and slow, and the the transmission is slow to respond. I mean, this drives a lot like a battleship, to be honest. It's ridiculously solid on the road, but it's not something you'd want to go through around the canyons.
It also tears through tires.
And brakes, yeah. A set of tires on these will last 15,000 miles, maybe, if you're lucky, especially on the backs. This also has a very different four-wheel drive system, so it has a center differential that's lockable. And then it's, always in four-wheel drive. And the fuel economy is terrible.
Yeah, we don't know what it is, but it's certainly less than the Atlas. So
I can tell you.
What is it?
Well, currently, 13.
Yeah, 13. Mm-hmm. Out of a V8 that was actually designed by Audi or for Audi by the Volkswagen Group. So herein lies the rub, Tommy, right? In Europe, Volkswagen is sort of kind of a premium brand. Here, it's definitely not, right? And what they try to do was sell, like you said, a premium vehicle as part of a brand that's not perceived that way. Remember when this first came out, I tried to convince your mom that, you know, she should get one of these, and she said, you know, she was working at a law firm, and she said the partners would laugh at her.
Because it was a Volkswagen.
Yeah, which is unfair to Volkswagen, but that's the perception, be it fair or not.
Yeah, but the thing is this had just as many features, if not more, than the equivalent Mercedes ML or X5.
This is actually, during that time, right, this was by far the most advanced, the most luxurious, the most technically savvy of all of them. More so than the BMW, more so than the Audi, even more so than the Mercedes-Benz, because a lot of this tech came straight out of the old Phaeton, right, which also was shared with Bentley, which Volkswagen owned.
Exactly. I mean, it's got weird stuff, like there's a button to turn off the lights on the steering wheel at night so they don't blind you. There's a button, actually a little reminder when it's cold, turn on the heated steering wheel. The navigation system displays its instructions in the little center instrument display, which is crazy for 2004.
Yeah, stuff that now you have to have one of those new digital displays to do, right? Configurable digital display, and yet it does it in this vehicle. So,
yeah.
Once again, you know, right car, wrong brand, unfortunately.
Yes, and from the outside, it's got a cool sound. It's got so much sound deadening in here, you can hear none of the V8 roar. It's got to be one of the quietest, most sound deadened cars on the road, maybe ever.
So Tommy, here's a really crazy thing. Did you know that Volkswagen does not export the Atlas to Europe, and of course it does not import the Touareg to America?
Yeah, they build the Atlas here in Chattanooga, and they built I don't know where they build the new Touareg, but it's definitely not here.
Yeah, and I think that is a shame, because I really think that the Atlas might sell very well in Europe, and the Touareg would sell very well here if they could keep it, you know, at a price point that most Americans are used to.
But that's the thing, that's why it never sold, and that's why I don't think it would ever sell, is because it is a premium car that was, in today's money, $60,000, $70,000, and people just expect that with an Audi badge, or, you know, a BMW badge, not a Volkswagen. That's why it was kind of a commercial failure here.
Well, there you have it, guys. Our very first Car Wars, old versus new. Let us know in the comments below, which would you rather have? I know it's apples to, well, maybe not oranges, but
pineapples. And as always, head over to TFLcar.com for the latest and greatest in new car reviews.
See you guys next time. Ciao.